Hey everyone, Katie Shaw here. Wow, do you smell that?
What am I smelling?
It's our first podcast, yo.
Okay.
We're here.
All right. What are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about insurance.
Insurance is the bane of my existence.
I mean, yeah, it pretty much is for
Everybody.
everybody.
Mhm.
So I said my name, who are you?
I'm Rebecca Booth, and I'm a therapist,
Yeah,
and I work for Katie.
yeah. So as this is our first podcast, some of you may not know, who are these two, right? Why are they doing this? So wanted to give you kind of a little bit of a background. So I opened up my own private practice July of 23. So I've been in the human service field way back, and yeah, this is going to date me a little bit, since really 2009. And I know many of you out there have been doing this for longer than me. But I've had a lot of various roles. I've done direct care. I've been like a coordinator. And most recently, I focused more so on the mental health arena. Kind of, I guess I would say, maybe the last 6, 7-ish years. And so most recently, I had worked for an agency where I was specifically a therapist, and became a manager over the therapy departments. And I really never set out when I got my master's degree. Like, I remember having a conversation where someone said, yeah, you could open up your own practice. And I remember someone saying that to me at grad school. And I was like, oh, no, no, I would not do that. So it's never something that I set out to do. And I just felt like it was something I needed to do. Kind of 2 years ago. And so it was, yes, I opened in July of 23, but I had to prep for that. It wasn't just like, peace out, and like I opened it up. But I felt it necessary because I did not agree with a lot of approaches that were being done in some agencies, and just approaches in general in the mental health field. And yeah, sorry, we do have a fly that got in here, and so we may get a little anxious about it. But I didn't like a lot of the approaches that were kind of being done in treatment. I believe in, I guess, looking at the person differently, approaching things differently. And so I wanted to kind of venture and build something based on those values. So I had met Rebecca here at the agency I last worked at. And so she came on. And so we've actually worked together for numerous years. She's put up with me for numerous years.
5 years.
Oh, she's got the exact date.
Well,
So,
it'll be 5 years in November.
the exact date. That maybe that's saying something. If
November
you're keeping,
8th.
oh
Really
my
wanna
gosh.
know.
If you're keeping track, maybe that's not saying like great things.
I don't know. I have it in my bedroom etched into the wall.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that's not doing good. But we had a really good, I think, God, yeah. Chemistry, I think. I think we have kind of the same approach and a lot of things. I think that we're able to approach each other, work collaboratively together very well. I think you feel comfortable. Like we've been able to build that relationship where like you can feel comfortable, hopefully, like coming to me. Because I was like her supervisor.
You still are.
Yeah, I guess technically, but I'm trying to also note that yeah, I am, but I want to make it a little bit different.
Thank you.
So, she was gracious enough to make the big leap, because I do recognize that that is a very big leap. I mean, you're going from a stable like agency that has been established to just kind of a little private practice that had been open for like several months, and that is a leap of faith. So she did that leap and came on board with my private practice, K&K Counseling. And it's been going great, I think, so far. Would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to tell them about you?
Oh gosh. So my name's Rebecca. I've been doing social work, I don't know, 12, 13, maybe 14 years.
Yeah.
I just started doing therapy November 8th. 5 years. It'll be 5 years. I don't know. I can't math.
Like we went to like do like social work, and like math is not our forte. Like at least
No.
I don't know, when it comes to like insurance and like billing and like
Just tell me
adding,
just tell me what to
like enter.
yeah, just tell me the numbers.
Yeah. I just know. We didn't go for that, man.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Interrupted you.
I forgot where I was.
Oh. You've been doing this for a long time.
I have been. Yeah. I mainly work with children, teens, young adults, individuals with ADHD, anxiety. It's kind of my jam. I really like working with little kids. They're funny.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Young adults, they're great.
Mm-hmm. And you at this time pretty much work what platform?
100% from home. I do telehealth
Mm-hmm.
from home.
Yep. And that's I think one cool thing is that prior to COVID with the agency that we came from, that had already kind of been set up. So COVID, when that unfortunately kind of rolled out and happened, it really did not affect the agency that we were at because we already had that. We had kind of like our own kind of like platform and like focus, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I was hired, and you kind of had that too when you were hired, the focus was to bring services to rural areas in Iowa, which is fantastic. And so we utilized the platform of telehealth to do that. I think telehealth was kind of being born at that time.
It was new.
Yeah, it was still really new, and there was a lot of, I think, things that needed to be ironed out for sure. But it was kind of a blessing that with COVID being so impactful, we were able to kind of say, okay, we've already kind of been doing this. This is like, hey, we can kind of step in, right?
Yeah.
And we were able to provide support to a lot that needed that support. So that was, I think, kind of a really great thing that happened from that. Anything else?
No.
Like on you?
No.
No?
No.
Nah?
Uh-uh.
Okay. The reason for the podcast. So did the private practice, but
Insurance.
yeah, we're doing insurance today, yo. But the general reason for the podcast is that there is so much that is just not talked about. There is a lot that is advocated, which is awesome. But I think there is still things that are not talked about that needs to be talked about in the mental health field.
A lot of it's swept under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look. Don't
Yep.
look at the man behind the curtain.
Something. Something. And that's, I think it needs to change. I mean, for us to make change, we need to be able to just be able to have conversations, have the education, and look at different perspectives and be open-minded. We're not going to get into political, we're just not going to do that. And this podcast is going to be kind of a take it or leave it, we're not going to respond to hateful, negative comments. We just are not. So if you don't like what we're saying, then just please don't listen, and watch. We are going to try our best on here. We may not be the best at explaining a certain area, but we want to try and at least give some information and explain it the best way we can.
Yeah, but we'll have guests.
Yeah. But like the insurance today, like I probably am not the person to be talking about like insurance and breaking it down. But I just know that the insurance piece is a huge problem. And we need to look at it and we need to talk about it because of things that we're going to kind of break down here in a minute that I see every day. And I know that other therapists see it every day, and it's causing barriers for people. So I may not be the best person to break it down and explain things, but I want it to be talked about because it's a problem. It's a huge problem that's just not in the state of Iowa. It's everywhere. And so I think obviously things need to be done. But I think we need to also learn how to be able to just kind of calmly talk about things. We're not asking that you completely agree with what we're saying, but can we have kind of a talk about it? I think that's something that's really going on right now, is that if you don't believe what I'm saying, you just kind of are really kind of like on fire.
Me?
No, I'm using like an example,
Oh.
like just kind of that divide right now in our country. So if on this side something isn't agreed upon, the other side just is on fire about it. And we just kind of need to, and vice versa. And I'm not saying which side, but we just kind of need, I think, to just please kind of, calmly talk about things. Because when you're angry and, upset about things, which is understandable, but what's going to be done? What can be done about things when things are escalated like that? So being able to sit down and talk about things realistically. Do you think that covers it?
Yeah, let's roll.
All right. So insurance is great when it works, when you have it. When you don't have it, obviously it sucks. We see it on our perspective. That's how we get paid. Like, what, 99.9% of the time?
Yeah.
That's how providers get paid. That's how doctors get paid. That's how, like physical therapists get paid. So it's not just a mental health thing. It's a medical thing as well. So the thing with mental health that I'm going to speak to, and it probably can also be applied to like physical therapy and stuff like that. There's tons of different insurances out there. And with the insurances, as a therapist, as a private practice group or an agency or a hospital, there's different types. When we first graduated, And we were like, yay, we're baby therapists, you know. We got what's called a National Provider Identification Number. So we call it NPI.
Yep.
Just short, NPI. And so we each have an individual NPI number. And that's what's used for a lot of stuff with insurance. And so we have to credential, it's called credentialing, with insurance companies so that we can contract with insurances so that we can essentially get paid, right? So therapists have their own side kind of barriers in getting along with insurance companies. And then clients also have their side of things that I think we also need to be aware of. So, to the board.
All right.
I'm very visual. And so, this helps me kind of break things down a little bit. And so, hopefully, it helps you as well. So, I noted there's several different types of insurance. I hope I can make my handwriting really nice.
I don't think it matters.
You don't think it matters?
Nope.
Well, hopefully. Okay. One of the more common ones is state insurance. So that's commonly known as Medicaid. Medicaid. Okay. And specifically with the state of Iowa, we have what's called MCOs, or the Managed Care Organizations.
Which is privatized.
Okay. So, who is currently in the state of Iowa and is an MCO? Okay. So, there's 3 currently. There is Molina, and I abbreviated this one. It's Iowa Total Care. And then this one just changed their name. It used to be AmeriGroup, but now it's WellPoint. So, Medicaid is state funded. So what that means is it's funded by like taxes and stuff like that. So a lot of people, like for us, receive that insurance, and then certain therapists have to credential to accept Medicaid and which of the MCOs. The problem is that a lot of therapists, because of how much you have to go through to credential, is absolutely ridiculous. I'm being very honest with you. And if you ask another therapist, if they've gone through the process, they probably will also be very honest with you. The wait alone, if you are able to do everything correct on an application, which usually does not happen the first go around, there's something that is wrong on the application. You have to wait months to get credentialed. And once you get credentialed and they give you a specific date, that means then you can see clients that have this type of insurance. So many therapists don't even want to deal with that. And the rates. So each of these MCOs may have different rates, but I believe that they have all the same rates, because Medicaid notes, okay, for this service, you're going to get paid this. For this service, you're going to get paid this. Just last year, 24, right?
We're still in 24.
Well, I'm sorry, 23. This is why I have her.
Okay, in 23.
Yeah, they raised rates.
Yeah, what, 10 cents? 5 cents? A penny?
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah. They raised rates. That
by
means
4%. There we go.
Oh, okay, 4%. So what a therapist may have received in seeing a client for a specific service, they said, here's a little bit more, not by much. So therapists have frustrations and barriers, and so that's creating a crisis. So many therapists are choosing not to credential with Medicaid. So what does then that in turn do? That means that there are less therapists available to see clients that have that type of insurance. So,
but it's not the client's fault.
No. And it is not, it doesn't mean that the client has done anything wrong. It's the barriers that agencies, hospitals, and private practices face. And so they just are choosing not to and only credential with certain insurances. So it's a ripple effect. So if certain agencies or hospitals decide not to credential with Medicaid, what does that basically create?
A bottleneck.
So you have people over here saying, I'm sorry, I wish I could, but I don't accept your insurance. So then you have, like, I'm going to use me as an example. Miss Katie here saying, hello, I do take your insurance, but I can only do so much, or I may only have so many therapists, but there's a lot of people in need of services. And there's a shortage of people like Miss Katie that are taking that type of insurance. So then it creates long wait lists of months for a person to get in to receive support, specifically mental health support. And if you are needing support, if you are really struggling, and to be asked to say, oh, just
you gotta wait 18 months. Sorry.
Time out.
Hold your stuff together for
Time
18
out.
months.
You need to wait 3 months. That's unbearable.
Put your depression on hold for 3 months.
Yeah, just pop a pill, or
you can't even get them.
But no, there's a shortage of drugs too, right? But how can you ask someone to do that, right? And then hospitals are becoming overwhelmed because a person is going through stuff. They're having symptoms, they're struggling, and they may need to access the hospital because their symptoms are extreme.
But there's not enough beds.
Excuse me. Yeah, there's just not enough beds. So then you have Medicare also. And we have been seeing this a lot more. So Medicare can be technically considered like a more federal because it is both, it kind of matches Medicare dollars. So again, I may not be the best person in the whole wide world to be explaining this. I'm given a disclaimer, but I just want to try and make more people aware of basically the epidemic that's going on, right? So Sorry for my wonderful erase job on this. So then you have Medicare, which is a federal type of insurance, but then it is run by an agency. I'm sorry for my wonderful handwriting. An agency that also oversees Medicaid. And it is called the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, so CMS. Okay? So, the same place runs them both. So Medicaid is funded by states, okay? And then Medicare is federal, but also will dump money into Medicaid. So they kind of work hand in hand sometimes. So what we see a lot of times is a person might have a first insurance of Medicare and then a secondary Medicaid. This becomes frustrating because it seems like Medicare and Medicaid are not on the same planet. So when a therapist goes to bill and sends a claim in to Medicare, a lot of times Medicare denies paying it for various reasons. Then they send the bill to the secondary Medicaid. And if Medicare does not send certain things along with the claim, Medicaid is like, I'm not going to pay that therapist. I'm sorry, because Medicare didn't do their job and send what they needed to with that claim. So that's out of the therapist's hands a lot of times. So guess what happens?
We don't get paid.
We don't get paid, and we don't know when we're going to get paid. So that sucks.
But then you also have to credential with Medicare outside of being credentialed with Medicaid.
Yes.
Which I'm not yet, because it's a hot mess.
Yeah, that's kind of a couple month process as well. And so a lot of providers don't credential with Medicare because the rates are very, very low. And it's a hassle.
Yes.
It's a hassle.
They want wet signatures.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a problem with that. But we're not going to leave out the other insurances. Psh.
The private insurance?
Exactly. So you have what's called private insurances. And you probably have heard of those. That's like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Wellmark, United, Aetna, all that kind of great stuff. So this is called private insurance.
It's a employer-based.
Mm-hmm. So
if you lose your job, you lose your insurance.
Yeah. So like I said, like Blue Mark, like Aetna, right? And so forth. So sometimes a person can have private insurance as a first insurance, and then Medicaid is like a secondary. So it kind of helps cover what maybe Blue Cross Blue Shield doesn't cover. Medicaid will then kind of pick up that cost. So, I mean, for the most part, pretty great. But they also can cause barriers for people too. I just had this happen not that long ago. So on certain plans, it depends on what plan you might be put on with these. A person hadn't met their deductible. So a deductible is a sum of money that you have to pay out of pocket before insurance is going to start paying. Okay? So with this particular person, not that long ago, I was working with, I had been seeing Blue Cross Blue Shield said, you haven't met your deductible. And this person needed treatment. And what do we recommend for kind of a typical treatment? And it does depend on each person, but what's kind of the typical treatment?
What are you talking about?
Like weekly.
Oh, yeah, weekly talk.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, weekly.
So we recommend that we may see a person weekly. Now, Blue Cross Blue Shield was like, I know you haven't met your deductible. So guess what? You kind of have to pay the provider, right? So they said, oh, you need to pay the provider $150 a week for the client to pay, right? To pay me. Okay. So that's like, what, $600 a month for this client to fork over just for mental health services. We saw a spike during COVID, which is totally was needed during COVID. Okay. That a lot of people got put on Medicaid to help with COVID due to loss of jobs, loss of family members that were, kind of the breadwinners. And then shortly after a certain point of time, they lost the Medicaid insurance. And so a lot of people then were forced to be put on this Blue Cross Blue Shield. Many people cannot afford the copays, even $25 a month. Or if people are working to improve things and make just over the poverty level.
Oh yeah, I have clients who are like $20 over the poverty level.
They get kicked off the private or the state. But they still can't pay the $25 each week. That is a huge barrier for people. And agencies won't work with people most of the time and are like, well, you got $25 a week. And then that builds and builds and builds and builds.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a certain amount of time, they lose treatment. And that's not good for any scenario. And the agency is probably out that money, right? So I have a problem with that. And this is probably not the best business model, but I really believe in working with the person because I don't want them to be without treatment. So we wanted to start a fund that we are naming Bridging the Gap. And we wanted to create this fund for people that want to basically kind of support the mission and the vision that we have. And this would be a fund where people could apply for or tap into if they cannot provide and pay for their full copay. We usually try and work with the client that we see if they can just do $5 out of their copay. And so we would hope that then Bridging the Gap would maybe pick up the other 10 or 15, whatever it would be. Because we do not want accessing mental health to be a barrier for anybody. So you'll find out if you check out our page, you'll find out a lot more about Bridging the Gap. And hopefully you learn stuff from the first podcast a little bit. But again, disclaimer, you don't have to agree with what we're saying. But hopefully you'll hang in there with us. We're excited to still talk about things that need to be talked about. And what are we going to do for our second one?
We're going to talk about ADHD.
Oh, yeah. So check it out. Hope to see you next time. Thanks so much.